Classic Adelaide.
Yes, Classic Adelaide is where we kind of touch base with our musical heritage in this city. And today we're going to meet Ronnie Taheny. She spent 35 years in the music industry. She's released 8 albums and spent over 25 years touring locally and abroad. She's worked alongside some of the best singer-songwriters in the business like David Gray and Billy Bragg. And before we meet Ronnie, let's remember some of her great music. This is a little bit of This Time.
You see me smiling, enough to keep you guessing. And when the rain comes down, it's a hidden blessing. And if I find myself, that's the way.
This Time by Ronnie Taheny. Welcome, Ronnie.
Hi, Jules. How are you going?
Welcome to the worst version of This Is Your Life You'll Ever Experience.
Thank you so much for having me along.
Let's
It's
go
gonna
back
be
to
fun.
Edithburgh in the York Peninsula.
Yeah.
11 children, really, in your family?
Yeah, well, 11 brothers and sisters, so there's 12 of us all up. And Mum only stopped because she kind of hit menopause.
Did you all remember? I mean, I come from a family of 5, so a reasonably big
okay.
family.
Well, that'd be huge these days.
Yeah, I know, huge these days. So, but
Yeah.
11, really?
Yeah.
Did everyone remember each other's names? Was there
Yeah,
a
well-
Von Trapp moment where you had to sign off?
There was a huge amount of on-track drama. But, you know, as I said when I was publicising this on Facebook, the caption, the main tag I used was connecting the dots backwards. And you can only do that, of course, in retrospect when you go, oh, my God, of course, that's why I decided I wasn't having children at the age of 4 or 5. Of course. But simultaneously, I knew I was going to travel the world playing music, singing and playing music. So it didn't matter. It was a fantastic exclusive kind of deal anyway. But I tell you what, being ninth in the family allowed me to look up at my mother's job at that stage when, you know, and I guess in a way a lot of women still are. And I just went, shake that. So I said, blow that for a game of soldiers, not doing that. That doesn't look remotely like a life.
Do you think performing comes easier to people in large families because they're looking for attention? Like, do you think, because
there's-
often you find people in the entertainment industry are from large families
yeah.
and, you know, they kind of tell jokes to get attention. They sing, they act.
That's a very, very good observation, Jules, because I would agree with that. They do punch above. There's an inordinate representation of large kids from, and often of adverse circumstances that it gives them, it's not an escape. Of course it's escape. Of course it is therapy. But by and large, you become a bigger character in these families and you become very, very fast at spontaneous survival. And a lot of kids with adversity and all these huge families often have, you know, those great quirks called ADHD and stuff. And I don't like the D on the end of these things because I don't think they are disorders. Just put them in the right job.
Yes.
And they're sensational. Advertising, marketing, stand-up, this stuff where you have to go bang, bang, bang and be fast. And it's a huge advantage in a lot of these things. And that's where these people are coming from. They'll tell you themselves.
Where was your first venue in Adelaide that you played? Like your first performance?
Well, you know, if you're talking about the original music scene, because there's a few incarnations further back of myself in Adelaide chorus and different things as a tenor, actually, they told much better jokes than the altos. So I went over with the tenors. I guess this house, before this house was Tour de Force, and that would have been, the Alma.
Oh, the Alma Hotel, really?
I remember that. That was during Greasy Pop era. You know, that record label in the 80s was Exploding White Mice and Where's the Pope and all those guys, Mark of Cain. So, yeah, the Alma, I reckon, when I was an alto sax player and just too scared to sing, but I knew I had to do it, you know.
What prompted you to do it?
Well, I knew when I was 4 I was going to do it. And I by the age of 17, I only came to Adelaide to do high school teaching as an excuse to be immersed in the field and push myself out of there is no comfort zone, really, you know. So... I got, by the age of 17 and 18, and I kept saying, oh, no, I couldn't do that. I said, come on, join our band, we need an alto. I say, oh, I couldn't. And I'd just be cursing myself because when you're shy, you become a spectator in your own life. And I couldn't stand it. It was driving me mad. And so sometimes the only way around stuff is through it. And it took 30 years to get over stage fright. And
30 years?
yeah, I got over it about 3 years ago, and so I thought, right, job done. All the steam went out. I went, now I can retire and start handing the baton over. That's what I did.
It's funny with performers because even when you talk to performers who get up on stage every night, some of them still like vomit before they
Yeah.
go on. There's sports
Yeah.
people who vomit,
Yeah.
before they go on out
Yeah.
into the
A
field.
career of diarrhea.
People kind of think, oh, you public speak all the time. It must be easy for you. It's not. I think there's still as much terror.
Yeah.
Even more so. I was reading an article about you, Ronnie, and you said that back in, I won't say your era because you're still producing
Thank
music
you.
and you
Is
still
Veronica
sing.
Taheny relevant?
Yeah, but back in the 80s and let's say 70s, 80s and 90s, you talk about performers being a little bit mental or mad or dysfunctional, and that was kind of out on display. Yet now it's, when you mentioned Bon Scott, as well. There was kind of a manic kind of energy to
absolutely.
performers, to singers and things, whereas now it's a little bit more, it's a bit more like a business. People are less likely to be like that. Why do you say that?
Well, if we take the, let's take it. Thank you, excellent question. If we also put that analogous to someone like, the Sex Pistols, who were signed on one day and sacked on the next day because they
that's
were just so bizarre. Those characters still exist, and this industry, the arts industry, still attracts incredible borderline personalities. But it's just that now there's so much involved in it and everything's global that they have to temper them. And these people are not to speak to the press, and they tend to have lots of minders. So it allows them to appear a little bit more tempered and grown up and responsible. But I think those bizarre characters, what's the difference? I'm only thinking on my feet here, which is my forte. I'm thinking that they just don't get through those really bizarre characters anymore because there's so many more hoops and so many different hoops to get through now that they would probably be ostracised, or someone like Bon Scott would still get through because he was just an alarmingly large character. However, the same thing would happen. He'd be dead at 25, 27. The same thing would happen. It's just, you can't do both.
How long did it take you to build up a following performing in Adelaide, as a solo artist or with your bands, Ronnie?
I'd been burning away for about 5 years, and then I had learnt from much older guys who poached me in duets. And they said, get yourself someone with energy out the front and get a drum machine, was their brief from the pubs who started not to book them. And so I got a Guernsey. I was poached by these guys who really knew their stuff. So I learnt a lot about business through these guys who were over it. They're 35 and they just want to get on with the job. So I learned all that. And so through that got a following, I suppose. And then I knew what I wanted, of course. And I'm 24 by 22 or 23, finished uni, and things are going well, but I knew that I had to find people who weren't married, weren't divorced, weren't paying off divorce rates. They didn't have kids because we know, sadly, that hamstrings. It doesn't stop, but it certainly slows stuff down. And I was focused with a dogged, devotion and dedication of a nun to this stuff. And so consequently, I did a course specifically to find 4 or 5 other people who were single, were able to go, had no holds on them. And so bang, This House is Jumping was found at TAFE doing a certificate, a 2-year certificate. A 1-year certificate. And these guys, it was all the constellations were aligned, and they are still great mates. And that's what worked. We were great mates. We respected. We're very different. We're a fantastic coggery of a greater machine. And that's when we really got a critical mass. And within 3 years, we still hold the record of the largest number of people in the Fez Bar for an EP launch that we did, which was 12-inch vinyl.
How many people?
Well, it was something like 1,100, and I'll tell you, this is a story that, because you asked, have you got a good story? Most of the stories, I'll be honest, are all overseas. The 25 years based in Europe, because when you put yourself on a limb, remarkable things always happen.
All right, well, give us one Adelaide and one overseas one.
I'll stick the Adelaide one.
Okay.
We won't have time. The Adelaide one was that. That's probably the best because people listening, I know for a fact a lot of them are listening, and they were at this gig. And Graham, I remember Graham, one of the security, I'm sure it was Graham, the security guy, who now owns Spargo's down at Marion Shopping Centre. He in his suit and these guys, they just looked at us, rolled their eyes with a bit of sweat on their brow and kept opening these, what you'd call the foyer doors at the festival theatre there.
Yeah.
Just opening foyer doors, which allowed you another spread into the outer sanctum of that circular, main theatre, where the Fez Bar used to take place on a Friday night starting at 11. So that was pretty mammoth. There was over 1,100 and it was an absolute swim through. It was remarkable. Of course, it's more remarkable now because I've got, a retrospect on it. But at the time, when you're immersed in a career, it's been a busy 35 years and I haven't stopped because you can't actually be in the moment too much then because you're already running your plan for the following year.
Yes, you're always thinking a step ahead.
So you can't be immersed totally. I think those people who have management, external management, really get a better sense of, it just happened for me. I don't know. Here I am. Suddenly I'm in Paris playing.
Do you think you're around a peak of the live music scene in Adelaide? And that's not a criticism of Adelaide. It's just more technology is, it's spread music around so much more widely that there's not the... you're not sort of forced to seeing a band live. Not that people are forced, but, if you wanted to see a band, you had to go and see them live. Now you can watch them on YouTube. So do you think there was a peak of live music around Adelaide in that sort of late 80s, 90s, 70s period?
Under that criterion of live, absolutely. But, technology always drives stuff and it certainly morphs stuff. So people now, musos now, have got myriad ways in which they can make an income and get themselves out there, of course, and they don't ever have to be a good performer. But yeah, if you're talking live, Adelaide was actually and still is, will always be a place that's able to hold its own. People diss Adelaide. I was overseas 25 years and people go, oh, Adelaide, can't wait to get out of here. What was London like? What's Berlin like? What's this? And I said, well, how do you find Adelaide? And they go, oh, it's crap. It's a dive and just... And I go, well, that's exactly how you're going to find London and Paris and Berlin because it's your attitude, mate. Right? So in this way... Greasy Pop were very, very... That's Doug Thomas. He did himself in, he just about mortgaged his funeral on it to make it a very good breeding ground for more what we'd now call heavier rock stuff. But venues, yes, were there. Venues used to have a cover charge a lot of the time. That was healthy. It gave us value. These free-agains do my head in because it just devalues us. You don't get a plumber around for free, do you? And so in this way it's morphed. And is it better? There is no better and worse. You just find new ways and creative ways and work laterally and you always find stuff around. There's always room for soloists. So I always encourage my artists on the label to always go solo if they can. Why get a band? Sometimes a band will diminish a strong person. You only need one person often.
And finally, Ronnie, because we've got to get to one of your songs to fit that in so we can hear your music. Favourite artists that you got to meet and work with? Because I'm reading Billy Bragg and people like that. Did you have a favourite? Because you did spend a lot of time overseas, as you said.
Yeah, I just did. I only came back 3 months a year for summer, of course. So I did. I had a tan for 26 years. It's the first time I've been white in about 3 years.
Who was your favourite artist that you got to work alongside?
Oh, look, difficult. David Gray is of course a lovely person, but he was highly anxious because he'd been grinding away for a decade and suddenly it happened.
Yeah, I saw a concert of his where he had technical problems and he wouldn't look up. He was so annoyed by it. Yeah.
He's pretty got a short fuse. So he's a more difficult person to know because he's more cynical. But look, most of these people, whether it's Tom Robinson and these guys, you would know this. Most people would. There's 3 layers. You got the people who want to be, the people who were once, and those who want to be didn't take it by the horns and didn't milk it to the end. So they're always coulda, woulda, shoulda and bitter. Then we've got the people who did and came back. And then you've got the people who have always been peripheral but always made a very comfortable, civilised living running their own show. So the dog is wagging the tail. And they're the lovely ones. And this is all that level of singer-songwriters I work with. So they're all lovely.
All right, Ronnie. Thank you for coming in. I could go another half hour with you. Actually, do a proper "This Is Your Life" with a photo book and all sorts of sorts of past ghosts.
There are none.
We're going to hear a song called "This Time"
from This House Is Jumping.
I think so. Yes, it is from This House Is Jumping. Tell us about This Time very quickly. What we're about to hear.
I wrote this one. It was our first single. It was on cassette, and then it was on.
With a single? Was it a single?
It was on cassette. Yeah, we've seen so many formats in our time, and there'll be more to come. And it was one of our hits, and it's kind of feel good, isn't it? Really, have a listen.
This is Ronnie Taheny. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. That was great.
you get